The Last Train Home. Chapter 1. The First Car. The low rumble of the train was the first thing Yuki heard. A distant, flickering hum from the lights overhead cast a sickly pallor across the worn blue seats. He stirred, rubbing the back of his head, and slowly sat up. Where am I? His eyes adjusted to the dim glow. The train car was old, uncannily so, and completely silent except for the train's rhythmic groan. Dust hung in the air like forgotten thoughts. The window beside him showed only darkness, not even the faintest outline of the world outside. Last thing I remember, I was heading home. The station. It was late. I don't even remember getting on a train. He stood. The floor beneath his feet creaked ominously. Every seat around him was empty, untouched. The atmosphere pressed down like a weight. There's no one here, and it's moving. He hesitated only a second before stepping toward the connecting door. The handle was ice-cold to the touch and resisted his grasp before finally giving with a reluctant clunk. The door slid open. The next car looked the same, but not quite. The lighting was dimmer, the buzzing overhead louder, angrier. The fabric of the seats was more tattered. Even the smell had shifted, something old and faintly sour. Looks the same, but not quite. He froze. At the far end of the car, a figure stood. A girl. Pale, motionless. Her shoulder-length dark hair framed a blank face, and her school uniform looked pristine against the decay of the train. She didn't blink. "You're late," she said, her voice as soft as dust. Yuki flinched. "But who are you?" "You were supposed to get off at the last station." I don't even remember getting on." "You never do," she murmured, tilting her head. "That's the point." His breath caught. "What is this place?" She didn't answer. Her eyes shifted slightly as she said, "Don't talk too loud. The train listens." "The train?" A loud screech echoed from above like metal tearing through metal. The lights flickered, once, twice, then steadied. The sound passed like a phantom. The girl nodded toward the ceiling. "See?" Without another word, she turned and walked through the doorhead, not looking back. Yuki stood frozen in place. This has to be a dream. A really messed up dream. Still, something compelled him forward. He opened the door and stepped into the next car. The lighting was darker still. The shape of things had begun to bend. Seats tilted slightly, as though the car itself were curving inward. The sound of the train now carried a heartbeat underneath it, slow and steady, matching the rhythm of his own panic. Why does each car feel wrong? He looked up and froze. A figure sat at the far end. A passenger slouched beneath a dim spotlight. Yuki's steps slowed. His breath caught in his throat. No way. The figure was him. Same face, same tired eyes, same slouched posture. Him, fast asleep. What the hell? Behind him, the door slammed shut with a metallic clang. He spun around, startled, and turned back to the figure. But now the other Yuki was sitting upright, eyes wide open, staring directly at him. And then, a slow, unnatural smile crept across his doppelganger's face. "Found you," the other Yuki whispered, voice warped and wrong. "The Last Train Home?" Episode 2. The Car of Echoes. Yuki gasped awake. His lungs ached like he'd been drowning in silence. Every breath note came ragged and raw, and the cold floor beneath him stole the warmth straight from his bones. His hand slipped against something slick. Glass? No, not just glass. He sat up slowly, eyes adjusting to a strange, refracted world. All around him, floor, walls, even the ceiling, were mirrors. But not clean, not clear. Bent, warped, as if reality had been stretched too thin across the frame. And the reflections weren't quite right. Each one of them moved just a second behind, like they were watching, studying, thinking, and deciding whether or not to follow. Another car, another trick? He rose to his feet. Every movement felt like a test. The air was freezing. Each breath turned to fog and hung around him like smoke. Overhead, the lights blinked in a rhythm that was unnatural. A sickly blue pulse, like the heartbeat of something broken. Then, voices. Soft, almost gentle, but wrong. They drifted across the car without a source, peeling off the mirrors like strips of memory. Yuki, did you forget already? Why did you leave us? Which one of you is real? His eyes snapped to his reflections. One tilted its head. Another cried. One smiled with blood-streaked teeth. Another didn't move at all. No, Yuki whispered, every word caught in the frost. You're not me. You're not. The mirror in front of him cracked. A slow, splintering sound. A spiderweb of fracture spread across the glass. And behind it, movement. Something was pushing through. The surface buckled, warped. A hand emerged. Then a face. His face. But wrong. The smile was too wide, curving up to the cheeks. The eyes were pits of liquid black. Something old and hungry leaped through them. The thing grinned. Its voice oozed through the cracks like rot. You're wearing my name. Walking in my shoes. But you forgot the blood on your hands. Yuki staggered back, heart hammering. No, I didn't. I haven't hurt anyone. The voice tilted into something softer. Didn't you? Then all the mirrors went dark. The air stilled. Time waited. One by one, they lit up again, no longer mirrors. Windows. Each a moment. Yuki, screaming at someone just out of frame. Yuki, standing over something crumpled. Yuki, drenched in red rain, holding a black umbrella. Yuki, smiling into a void where nothing stared back. He clutched his ears. Stop! I didn't do this. And then, quiet. A hand brushed his shoulder. He turned fast. Rena. She stood beside him, calm as still water, as if she hadn't vanished in the last car, as if the screaming, the smoke, the clawing dark hadn't swallowed her whole. Behind her, the mirror paused, still, waiting. Rena reached out, pressed a hand to the glass. It rippled like water. This car, she said softly, is called the Car of Echoes. Her voice was low, almost apologetic. It shows pieces of you. Not all of them are from now. Not all of them are yours. Yuki's throat tightened. What does that even mean? What is this train? She didn't answer. Not directly. Her eyes drifted toward the ceiling. Questions are cheaper than candy here, she murmured. Answers cost more. Ding. 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 A chime, deep and mechanical, echoed from nowhere and everywhere. Then shatter. Every mirror exploded at once. But the shards didn't fall. They floated. Suspended midair like a glass rainstorm paused in time. Rena stepped forward, hand outstretched, and plucked one from the air. She held it up, turning it in the blue light. It pulsed faintly. This one's yours. She pressed it gently into his palm. It was warm, vibrating slightly like a tiny heartbeat. And it felt familiar. Then, without warning, the far door hissed open. Thick fog spilled in, rolling low across the floor like steam from some deeper furnace. Yuki stared. Where does that go? Rena didn't look at him. Closer. He swallowed. Closer to what? Her expression didn't soften this time. There was no smile, not even a ghost of one. To the answer, she said. Or the end. Sometimes they're the same thing. She walked forward. And, after a moment, so did he. But as he passed a final frozen shard, the edge of his vision caught something. His reflection. It smiled. But he didn't. Episode 3. The dining car. The train doors creaked open with a sigh, revealing a space suspended in time. Yuki stepped in first, his shoes tapping against polished tile. Rina followed close behind. Before them stretched an impossibly ornate dining car, its walls gleaming with gold trim, its tables draped in velvet cloth. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling, swaying gently, their light flickering like old film. A distorted jazz melody drifted through the air, warbled and slow like an ancient record too tired to sing clearly anymore. It was elegant, lavish, almost warm. Almost. This place feels off, Yuki muttered, eyes scanning the room. Like it's trying too hard to be normal. It's pretending, Rina said beside him, arms folded. Just like you do. The soft hiss of static accompanied the music. Light bulbs buzzed. Shadows lingered too long. Then, from the far end of the car, a tall figure glided forward, faceless, pale, wrapped in a pristine black tuxedo. Where its features should have been, there was only a smooth oval, as if its face had been erased with intent. Table for two, the maitre d' said, voice polished and precise. You're just in time. The course has already begun. Yuki blinked. Wait, what course? We didn't. Dinner is essential, the figure cut in smoothly, tone never changing. Before any revelation, one must eat. He gestured, and two chairs pulled themselves back. They sat. Menus, elegant, leather-bound, were placed before them. But instead of food, the pages listed strange entries. Her face. The rain. The noise. Regret. Before it happened. What the hell is this? Yuki whispered, flipping the pages as if some logical explanation might be hidden in the folds. Memories, probably, Rina replied, calm as ever. Or lies. Hard to tell the difference here. His finger hovered, then pressed on her face. The maitre d' bowed in silence and disappeared. A moment later, a silver cloche was set down before him. The lid lifted with a hollow clang. Beneath it sat a cracked mirror, filled with a shimmering, red liquid. Floating within it, barely visible, was a girl's face. Blood smeared her cheeks. She mouthed something soundlessly, tears mixing with crimson. Yuki leaned forward, and then he flinched back. I know her. I think, he murmured, throat tight. I don't know. Why can't I remember? Rina didn't blink. Maybe you already forgot her once. The chandelier above flickered, blinked, and then opened. Dozens of tiny red eyes revealed themselves along the glass, watching. The silverware began to tremble. The room bent, curved like a dream tilting into nightmare. Other diners appeared. Copies of Yuki. One disfigured, one sobbing, one with blank, lifeless eyes, one with no mouth at all. All of them sat at their own tables. All of them ate. Silently. No, Yuki whispered. No, this isn't real. He looked down. His dish had changed, grown. It pulsed, meaty and wrong, slithering up his chest, past his lips, forcing its way inside. He gagged, choked. His hands clawed at it as whispers pressed against the inside of his skull. Shoo, shoo, shoo. Snap out of it. Rina's voice snapped through the air like lightning. She reached across the table, grabbed his collar, and yanked. The chandelier reversed. The room unwound. Time rewound. The guests vanished. The music screeched into silence. All that remained was the maitre d'. Now towering. Now wrong. Its blank face had become a swirl of shadows, shifting, whispering, pulsing with buried voices. "You cannot leave the table," it intoned, voice deepening into a low, monstrous growl. "Until you've tasted every course of who you are." The next door burst open behind them. They bolted. Rena dragged Yuki through as the air collapsed around them. The door slammed shut, locking the nightmare behind. Darkness. They stumbled forward into the pitch black. Breathless. Shaking. In total silence, except for one sound. Breathing. Not theirs. Deep. Slow. Ahead. Rena's voice came soft, serious, almost reverent. "This is where we find your first real answer," she said. "Or not come back at all." The breathing stopped, and all light disappeared. Episode 4. The Dark Car. The air was unnaturally still. Yuki stood before the next door in the endless train, his breath catching in his throat. Unlike the others, this one pulsed, deep black like wet obsidian, its surface trembling as if alive. Etched into its center was a symbol, a spiral swallowing itself, drawn in fading white chalk. A low hum vibrated beneath their feet, swelling like distant thunder rolling through a cavern. "This one feels wrong," Yuki whispered. "It is," Rena said flatly. She stepped forward without hesitation, fingers curling around the edge of the door. "Wait, are we even supposed to?" The door creaked open before he could finish. A blast of cold mist roared out, devouring what little light remained in the corridor. They were swallowed whole by darkness. The dark car. Time? The door slammed shut behind them, cutting off the world. Total darkness. Thump. Thump. A heartbeat echoed through the void. Deep. Slow. Ancient. "Rena?" Yuki's voice trembled. "Where?" "I can't see." A strike. FT. A match sparked to life in his hand, casting a tiny glow across the abyss. Suspended in midair floated fragments of his life. A row of school desks. A cracked cell phone buzzing endlessly. A bloodstained scarf, tangled and wet. And a fogged-up mirror, its surface quivering. "These are mine," he said. "I think?" Whispers surrounded him, distorted and spoken in reverse, crawling into his ears like insects. "Yuki, back, remember, the end begins again." From the darkness beside him, Rena's face appeared, pale, her violet eyes wide with unease. "It's not showing me anything," she said. "What?" "This car. It's only for you." And then tendrils of shadows surged from the ground, latching onto her legs and waist. She screamed. "Rena!" Yuki lunged forward, and collided with something solid and invisible. He pounded against it as she was dragged away into the shadows. "No, no, no, no!" A voice rose from the depths, not one voice, but hundreds layered together. "One must face the dark alone. Choose. Save her. Or remember." Two levers erupted from the floor, one glowing red, the other white. "What kind of choice is this?" Yuki screamed. A clock began ticking. Fast. Unnatural. He didn't think. He grabbed one. The world twisted, spun. Faster. Faster. Memory fragment, hospital room. The scent of antiseptic. Beeping monitors. He was in a hospital room. A girl lay motionless in the bed, her skin pale beneath fluorescent lights. A name glowed on the monitor. Emi Sato. He was holding her hand. "Emi?" The memory trembled, like a dying reel of film, and then shattered into static. Yuki woke on the cold floor of the train car. The void was gone. Dim lighting flickered softly above him. The car looked normal. Rena stood at the far end, untouched. Calm. But something was different. Her eyes, no longer violet. Now, a dull gray. "Well done, Yuki," she said with a strange calm. "You passed." "What the hell just happened?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Rena tilted her head. "Depends on what you chose." I don't even remember." A train horn screamed overhead, splitting the air like a blade. The car shook violently. "Outside the train, Nai." Through the windows, a station came into view, familiar yet wrong. Rotting signs. Weeds in the tracks. Decaying benches. But Yuki knew it, somehow. "That's my home?" "Not exactly," Rena murmured, stepping beside him. "More like a place you left behind." The train groaned as it slowed. The doors hissed open. And from outside drifted the eerie, off-key chime of a distant music box. Episode 5. Whispers in the static. Train car dimly lit continuous. Yuki stumbled forward into the next car. The door hissed shut behind him with a metallic finality. This place was different. The lights were low and flickering, pulsing in sync with a low static hum. Stacked to the ceiling, on both sides were rows of retro televisions, hundreds of them, their screens warped with static, flickering with images both familiar and impossibly foreign. Some flashed distorted memory, as others looped moments from earlier on the train. A hallway of mirrors, Rena's shadow, the soundless scream of the screaming car. Yuki whispered to himself, voice swallowed by the hum. "Yuki. Where am I now?" The TV is suddenly synchronized. A new image crackled into focus, Yuki's own face, but wrong. Its eyes were hollow. The mouth was stretched into a jagged, impossible grin. The face on the screen spoke. "TV Yuki'd every screen." "You're still running?" Yuki stumbled back. A static burst from the audio, a screeching, digital scream. The door behind him slammed shut, sealing him in. "Yuki. No, no." TV hallway continuous. The floor beneath him pulsed like it was melting. Soft. Alive. He tried to move, but every step sank deeper. The televisions began to turn, angling themselves to follow him, like eyes with pixelated irises. On screen, fractured versions of himself. Yuki crying in a hospital bed. Yuki alone, screaming into nothing. Yuki watching himself fall. Yuki shouting, "This isn't real! It's not me!" A slow clicking echoed from above. A single screen descended from the ceiling, held by rusted mechanical arms. It flickered violently until a new image locked into place. A room. Real. Familiar. Yuki's bedroom. Messy piles of notes covered his desk. Headphones tangled in a knot beside empty ramen cups. His breathing hitched. Yuki softly. "I remember this." Then from the edge of the screen, the darkness split. Rena stepped out. But something was wrong. Her face glitched, twisting like corrupted code every few seconds. "Yes." Her voice echoed, disjointed, warped by delay. "Glitch, Rena." Truth hides in the static, but beware what it reveals. She reached out. Her hand phased through his chest, and for a heartbeat, Yuki saw through himself. A kaleidoscope of overlapping silhouettes. Versions of him, laughing, crying, dying. Then everything stopped. Blackout void continuous. The lights died. Complete silence. Then Thump. A heartbeat. Another TV flickered on in the distance. It showed a train station. Dessert. D. Rotting. The camera zoomed slowly toward a bench. Sitting there, still, solemn, was a woman. His mother. She looked straight into the screen. Straight at him. Yuki whispers, "Mom." Suddenly, every screen blinked out. Then one final message burned across all of them, dripping red, pulsing with menace. "Get off the train before you remember." Yuki screamed. The entire train jolted violently as if reality itself convulsed. Episode 6. Echoes in the static. The hum of the train was dulled, like it had been submerged under weight. Yuki sat still, eyes drifting across the quiet car. The silence felt unnatural, too thick, too absolute. Overhead, the lights flickered in strange patterns. Each time they went out, the darkness lingered a moment too long before the buzzing glow returned. "Where am I now?" Yuki murmured, his voice barely audible over the low thrum. At the far end of the car, a figure emerged, Rena. But something was wrong. Her form shimmered with static distortion, flickering in and out like a corrupted video fill. Every few steps, she blinked out of existence, only to reappear closer. "You shouldn't be here yet," she said, her voice fragmented and layered. "Not this car. Not alone." Yuki stared at her, bewildered. Why? What is this place? A deep buzz began to rise. Static, low at first, then louder, vibrating through the floor and into his bones. The windows of the train darkened suddenly. No landscape, no stars, no light. Just pitch-black nothingness. Then, through the hiss of static, a voice boomed. It wasn't Rena. It wasn't Yuki. It was something else. Something old. Something beneath the train. "Do you remember what you left behind?" The words rattled the air. Yuki squeezed his eyes shut as flashes burst in his mind. A broken mirror, shards catching dim light. A dinner table, quiet, one chair left empty. A door closing slowly. Final. Absolute. "No," Yuki whispered, clutching his head. "Stop. I don't want to remember that." Rena's voice came again, clearer now. She stood beside him, the distortion fading slightly. "Why? This train doesn't care what you want, Yuki. It only shows you what you need." Suddenly, the train car lurched. The entire structure seemed to shift, groaning as its very dimensions twisted. The walls breathed, literally pulsing, and the air grew thick with an almost psychic pressure. 2 doors creaked open at either end of the car. One spilled blinding white light that hurt to look at. The other yawned open into complete and utter darkness. Rena turned to him, solemn. "Pick one. But know this, each path takes something from you." Yuki stood frozen. A muffled cry echoed from the shadows, faint, childlike. A memory? A trap? Maybe both. He stared into the blackness. "Then let it take what it must," he said, stepping forward. A pulsing whoosh surged around him, like falling through a tunnel built from thoughts. And then... nothing. Everything went black. Episode 7. The Dollmaker's Cabin. The train ground to a halt with a silence so unnatural it made Yuki's skin crawl. He and Rena stepped off the car into a dense forest drowned in fog. The air was damp, clinging to their clothes and filling their lungs like cold cotton. Ahead of them, crooked wooden signs swung gently despite the still air. "Cabin of Forgotten Faces." Rena scanned the shadows, her voice a whisper. "We're being watched. Keep moving." Yuki nodded uneasy. This place feels wrong. Like it was stitched together from someone's nightmares. They followed a trail barely visible beneath the moss, lit only by flickering lanterns that hissed like they might go out at any moment. The path led them to a small, rickety cabin. Its walls were adorned with masks and cracked porcelain dolls, their eyes strangely lifelike, watching in eerie silence. Inside the doll-maker's cabin. The air inside was thick with the scent of mildew and decay. Wooden shelves lined the walls, each crowded with dolls, some broken, others whole, but all lifeless, or nearly so. A few of them had eyes too real, too wet. A voice floated from the shadows, lilting and melodic. New faces from my gallery. How delightful. From the gloom stepped the doll-maker. She was tall and hunched, her face obscured by a leather mask stitched crudely together. Her hands were too long, her fingers trailing across the furniture like spider legs. "You've brought such expressive souls," she said with glee. "May I borrow your expressions, forever?" Yuki stepped in front of Rina, eyes narrowed. "We're not staying." The doll-maker tilted her head, amused. "Oh, but the train only moves forward when someone gives something up." She raised a hand, and several dolls stirred on their shell. One turned its head, and Yuki froze. It had the face of someone he knew. "Mina," he breathed. That's my classmate. What did you do to her?" "She gave me her fear," the doll-maker said sweetly. "You may do the same. Test of fear." The cabin began to shift, the walls stretching and curling like they were made of wax. The dolls turned their heads in unison, watching. A chair emerged from the floor, dragging Yuki into its seat. Before him, a tarnished mirror cracked and snapped into place. In the reflection, Yuki saw himself, but not quite. His mirrored self grinned with cruel eyes. "You're scared. Alone. Still pretending you're the hero of your own story." Rina cried out from behind him. She was bound to the wall by living ribbons, struggling as they pulled tighter. "Yuki! Don't give her anything real!" Yuki trembled, fists clenched at his sides. The reflection leaned closer. "You want fear?" he hissed. "Fine. Take it. But it's mine. And I'm keeping it." The mirror cracked. The cabin quake. The dolls shrieked. "No!" The doll-maker howled, her voice distorting. "You must surrender something." Yuki's gaze fell on a doll slumped on a nearby shelf. He ripped the mask from its face. Beneath it, a faded photo of a younger version of himself, smiling wide, eyes full of wonder. He knelt and laid the photo on the ground. "Here. My innocence," he said quietly. "That's all I can give." The cabin groaned, wood splintering. The dolls collapsed like puppets cut from their strings. And then, everything fell to silence. Back on the train, Yuki and Rina climbed back into the car. The lights buzzed weakly overhead. A single doll now sat on the table between the seats, stitched from scrap, with a crooked little smirk. "She'll be back," Rina said, staring at it. "The train always circles back to what you left behind." Yuki looked ahead, eyes steady. "Then I'll be ready next time." The lights flickered. The train jolted. And with a low moan of metal on track, it moved forward once more. Episode 8. The Diner That Serves Memory. Ease. The door creaked open with a soft chime. Car #7 was nothing like the others. Inside, the air buzzed with low jazz. The lights were tinted pink from a flickering neon sign that read, "Memories served fresh." The place looked like a diner frozen in time. Red leather booths, checkered black and white tiles, chrome-trimmed stools. Everything smelled faintly of syrup and dust, nostalgia baked into the walls. Yuki stepped in cautiously, his footsteps silent on the linoleum floor. He ran his fingers along the booth's edge before sliding into the sea. It squeaked beneath him like it remembered every conversation that had ever taken place there. Without warning, a laminated menu appeared before him. He hadn't seen anyone place it. He opened it. Today's special. Regret, nostalgia, denial. Served with a side of clarity. He read the words out loud under his breath. "What is this place?" "Welcome, sugar. What memory you hungry for tonight?" The voice came from the other side of the booth. Yuki looked up and froze. The waitress stood in a neatly pressed 1950s uniform, complete with a frilly apron and name tag that said nothing. Her face was smooth, featureless, a blank canvas of skin. Yuki's throat tightened. I don't want memories. I want answers. The waitress cocked her head, a mimic of empathy. Sometimes answers come with a side of pain. She set a glass of water before him. The surface rippled, though no one had moved. Yuki hesitated, then looked in. A memory stared back. His younger self stood in a dim room. A girl sobbed in the corner, face buried in her hands. He turned and walked out. The door closed behind him. No, Yuki whispered. I didn't mean to. Suddenly the diner's walls faded. The checkered floors turned to wood. The jazz cut off. He was in the memory. He felt the ache in his chest. Heard the girl's voice, soft and echoing like it had never stopped ringing. Why did you leave me behind, Yuki? His eyes widened. Reina. But the memory crumbled like hash in a breeze. He was back in the diner. Empty now. No music. No warmth. Just him. His hands trembled. What are you trying to tell me? The waitress appeared behind him like a shadow stretching too far. That not all passengers are strangers, sweetheart, she said sweetly. Some are regrets, wearing familiar faces. A chime rang out. The diner lights flickered one last time. A door creaked open at the far end of the car. Tip your guilt on the way out, she said, voice like static through velvet. Yuki rose slowly, shoulders tense. He cast one last glance at the booth, the empty glass still full of ripples. Then he stepped forward, into the next car. Episode 9. The hospital car. The door slammed shut behind him with a metallic screech, sealing Yuki into the next car. It was darker here. The ceiling lights crackled overhead, tubes of neon that buzzed and pulsed erratically. Some hung askew, others flickered in patterns that felt almost intentional, as if mimicking a heartbeat. Thump, thump. Buzz. Thump, thump. Flicker. Yuki stepped forward cautiously. Why do I feel like I'm walking deeper into someone else's nightmare? He muttered, his voice too loud in the stale air. This train car was unlike any before. Rows of rusted hospital beds lined both sides of the corridor, their metal frames chipped and cold. White sheets lay stretched over, still shapes, too still. Each form beneath the fabric hinted at human figures, unmoving. The scent of disinfectant barely covered something older, something rotting beneath the surface. Then, a speaker above hissed to life. Please remain calm, came a soft, sterile voice. Your memories are being processed. Side effects may include nausea, disorientation, or existential dread. Yuki swallowed hard. What the hell is this place? He took a careful step, then another, eyes flicking nervously between the beds. And then, a rasp. A wheeze. One of the beds stirred. A figure slowly rose beneath the sheet, limbs moving stiffly, as if pulled by invisible strings. Its head turned toward him. Its face was smeared, like an overexposed photo. No clear features, just a warped suggestion of eyes and a mouth, trembling. You left me, didn't you, Yuki? Yuki staggered back. I don't even know you. But the figure didn't stop. Its voice split, multiplied, morphed into an eerie chorus. Familiar tones rang out in the layers, Rena's voice among them. You promised. You promised we wouldn't forget. The train lurched violently. The floor tilted. Beds screeched across the car, smashing into walls. Yuki grabbed a nearby railing, barely holding on as the world spun sideways. Then, the hospital car shattered. Like glass under pressure, it cracked and flickered, and became a childhood bedroom. Small toys littered the floor. A stuffed bear leaned against the wall. Posters peeled from faded wallpaper. On the bed sat a boy no older than 6, sobbing quietly. Yuki's breath caught. "I didn't mean to forget," the child whispered, his voice his own. It was him. Younger, smaller, fragile in a way he'd long tried to bury. Yuki stepped forward, but before he could speak, the boy dissolved into static. Gone. In his place, a doorway opened. A long, glowing corridor stretched beyond, bathed in sterile wit. No shadows. No sound, except one. A heartbeat. It thudded softly at first, then louder with every step Yuki took. Every step forward, something else slips away, he murmured, not sure if he meant it for himself or the space around him. The corridor pulsed, cracked, and then shattered. The walls, the floor, the light, everything fractured like a mirror under pressure. He was falling. Into blackness. A void. There was no floor, no ceiling, only drifting fragments of memory. Photos. Laugh. Snippets of voice. They spun around him like leaves in a storm. "If I remember everything, will I disappear too?" Yuki asked the dark. Something shimmered. In the distance, the outline of a figure. Rena. Her back was turned, hair drifting as if underwater. Her voice echoed through the emptiness. "You can't find a way home without losing some parts of yourself. Keep going, Yuki. You're almost there." Episode 10. The Room of Lost Names. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly-lit car washed in an unnatural purple tin. Silence choked the air. The scent of dust and old paper hung like cobwebs. Yuki stepped inside slowly. The walls weren't walls at all. They were endless rows of filing cabinets, each drawer meticulously labeled. Names. So many names. Some labels were typed in pristine black ink. Others were smudged, faded, or deliberately scratched out. Above him, a cracked neon sign buzzed erratically. Room of Lost Names. Yuki's voice came out barely above a whisper. "What is this place? Some kind of office?" Before an answer could surface, Rena appeared beside him, silent, sudden, and spectral as ever. "Don't say your name aloud in here," she warned, eyes locked forward. Yuki blinked. "What? Why not?" Rena's tone was colder this time. "This room steals names. If you lose yours, you lose who you are." A shiver ran down Yuki's spine. They moved deeper into the car. A single ancient desk stood near the center, where a shadowy clerk sat motionless. The figure was grotesque, part human, part rusted typewriter fused to its body. "Why?" It clacked away, typing without touching the keys. Each click echoed like footsteps in a tomb. Then the drawers began opening and slamming shut, one after another, as if stirred by invisible hands. The clerk spoke in a flat, mechanical monotone. "Searching. Searching. Name detected. Why?" "No!" Rena snapped, grabbing Yuki's arm and yanking him behind a cabinet. The drawers all froze, mid-motion. "It was about to say my name," Yuki whispered, shaken. "Exactly," Rena hissed. "This room collects forgotten identities. Once they have your name, they own it. And then, you disappear." "But how could it detect?" "They hear memory," she interrupted. "Even a thought can echo here." They pressed onward, deeper into the maze of drawers. At the far end, a monolithic wall rose from the floor, covered in photographs, each pinned above a nameplate. Some plates shone with clarity. Others were scratched beyond recognition. Yuki stared at one of the photos. His breath caught. It was him. A younger version, maybe 6 or 7, sitting on a swing. But the name beneath? Scratched out. Claude. T. Erased violently. That's me, he murmured. Rena's voice was distant. Then part of you is already gone. A shrill, sudden ringing shattered the stillness. A telephone, a rotary model bolted to the wall, was ringing insistently. Its cord dangled like a noose. Should I answer it? Yuki asked, heart racing. Rena didn't look at him. That depends. Do you want to remember? Yuki stepped forward. The ringing grew louder, faster, panicked. He picked up the receiver. Static. Then... Avoic. Soft. Glitching. You can't find the mirror. And then silence. The phone melted into ash in his hand, dissolving like burnt paper. Yuki turned to Rena, eyes wide. What mirror? What's that mean? She didn't answer right away. Her gaze shifted toward the next train door. It was framed in mirror shards, fragments of glass, each catching and distorting light. In the reflections, Yuki saw himself. But not quite. He was older, bruised. His eyes were red with something he didn't recognize. Anger? Sorrow? Guilt? The mirror shows what you've forgotten, Rena said quietly. And what you're running from. Yuki took one step toward it. Then I have to find it. They walked forward together. Toward the reflection car. Episode 11. The reflection car. The door creaked shut behind them. Yuki and Rena stepped into the next car, and instantly, everything felt wrong. The wall shimmered, mirrored from floor to ceiling, creating a disorienting labyrinth of warped reflections. Their images stretched and twisted across the glass, blinking just out of sync. Even the light above them flickered, casting flashes of double shadows. Silence pressed in from every direction. Too thick, too perfect. Their footsteps echoed infinitely, as if the car went on forever. Rena's voice broke the tension. Don't look too long. These mirrors see more than they should. Yuki glanced at her, confused, but didn't argue. He kept his gaze moving, never settling. Still, something was off. Their reflections were delayed. They blinked a heartbeat too late. Moved with Allah. Gee, some didn't blink at all. As they walked, the mirrors began to shift, no longer simple reflections, but windows. Images bled through the silver glass. A young boy, no older than 7, sat alone in a hospital waiting room, face hidden behind his hands. The seats around him were empty. Yuki froze. That's me. Another mirror flickered to life. Teenage Yuki, drenched in rain, walked home with a torn backpack. People passed him on the sidewalk. None met his eyes. Why is it showing me this? Yuki asked, voice trembling. Rena watched the reflections with a distant look. It wants you to forget who you pretend to be and remember who you are. The air grew colder. The mirrors rippled as if made of water. And then they changed again. No longer reflections. No longer memories. They were watching. Reflected Yuki's lined the walls, eyes locked forward. One smiled. Another tilted its head with a twitch. Then they started to move. Toward the glass. A sharp crack rang out. One mirror fractured, a spiderweb spreading from the point where reflections hand pressed against the inside. Yuki stumbled back. This isn't real. It can't be. It feeds on doubt, Rena said, yanking him by the sleeve. Keep moving. They ran. All around them, the reflections pressed closer, whispering things they couldn't hear. The air throbbed with static. Another mirror shattered. This time, something stepped through. A figure made of shadows and fog. Its face? Yuki's face. But its eyes were empty sockets. The shadowy other Yuki blocked the path ahead, mimicking every move Yuki made, an uncanny dance of self-confrontation. Rina flicked something from her coat. A flare of white-hot light ignited, bathing the car in unnatural brilliance. The creature hissed and staggered back. You can't fight it, she warned. You have to accept it. Yuki took a shaky breath. He turned to the double. Its face was a contorted mirror of every self-loathing thought he tried to bury. The fear. The guilt. The anger. You're me, he whispered. Every part I hate. But I'm still here. I'm still standing. The creature paused. Then, slowly, it smiled. It nodded once, almost respectfully, and dissolved into mist. The mirrors all around them cracked in unison. The silver world began to collapse. Shards rained to the ground, and beneath the broken glass was simply silence. Ahead, a door slid open. A glow, warm and red, poured through like sunlight bleeding into a dream. Rina turned to him. For the first time, a faint smile touched her lips. Not everyone survives this car. You did. Yuki didn't smile back. Not yet. Barely. They stepped into the light. Behind them, the door closed. And for a moment, just a moment, one final mirror shimmered on the floor. It showed a grinning face. Not Yuki. Not Rina. Something else. Watching. Episode 12. The car with no doors. The hallway bucked, suddenly lurching beneath Yuki's feet like a living beast. He staggered, one hand cacking the metal wall to keep upright. Light above him flickered like a failing heartbeat, casting fractured shadows that danced along the corridor. He blinked rapidly, adjusting to the unstable rhythm of it all, and realized he was alone. Rina, he whispered. His voice sounded small in the long hallway, and yet it echoed. Twice. No, not echoed. Mocked. Yuki, Yuki. The name slithered through the air like a corrupted recording, his voice, but warped, glitching, mangled beyond recognition. Then he saw it. At the far end of the corridor, where there had been nothing just moments ago, a doorless entryway appeared. A hole in space, pulsing softly like the throb of a sick heart. That wasn't there before. The hallway groaned beneath his steps as he walked forward. The walls trembled faintly with each movement as if resisting his passage. He stepped through. And into nothing. There was no floor, no ceiling. Just floating fragments, twisted staircases, shattered train tracks, impossible angles suspended in midair. A realm torn free from logic, drifting in an endless void painted with slow-turning stars and dark static. Yuki stood on one narrow track of train floor, the rest falling away into abyss. All around him, memories drifted like ghosts. There he was at 6 years old, humming a made-up song while brushing his teeth. At 15, soaking in rain at a silent train station, ice-glazed with grief. At 22, laughing so hard he cried at the dinner table he couldn't fully remember. Are these memories? He breathed. The air answered with a chill wind, cold enough to sting, though nothing here should have moved at all. In the center of the void, a cracked mirror rotated slowly, suspended in place like a dying planet. Yuki approached it cautiously. With every step, his reflection splintered. First, it fractured into shards, then those shards moved on their own. Inside the mirror, a moment he had never remembered. A younger Yuki stood at the edge of train tracks, unmoving as hollow. From behind, a hand reached out, gripping his wrist. Rina! The image cracked with a sound like bones splitting. No, Yuki whispered, reeling back. That can't be. A low mechanical groan shivered through the air, ancient, deep, and filled with static. And then, the train itself spoke. "This courage holds the memory you buried," said the voice, not a male nor female, soaked in rust and revere. "B. To exit, a toll must be paid." "A toll?" Yuki asked. The word tasted wrong in his mouth. "Choose one memory to forget forever, and you may move on." Without warning, 2 doors materialized before him, floating in the void. One glowed white, soft and clean like snow beneath a lamppost. The other, black, humming with shadow. Between them, a mirror shard hovered, showing only his own wide eyes, uncertain, frightened. "Forget, and go forward," the train's voice intoned. "Remember, and remain." Yuki clenched his fists. "What did I come here to do?" He whispered to himself. "What did you want me to remember?" His hand rose. It trembled. And just as his fingertips brushed one of the handles, black silence. Episode 13. Reflections of the Past. The next door creaked open with a groan that echoed into nothingness. Yuki stepped forward. The light inside this car was strange, cold, pale, and ghostly blue like moonlight filtered through deep water. The corridor ahead stretched out endlessly, flanked on all sides by towering, perfect mirrors. Walls, ceiling, even the floor, they all reflected him, over and over, the infinite. But something was off. His reflections didn't move quite right. Each mirrored version of himself followed his steps with the slightest delay, as if reluctant, or watching. "This place again," Yuki murmured, "but different." He took another cautious step. His boot tapped the glassy floor, sending a sharp crack of sound ricocheting off every surface. The air grew colder, thinner. Then, from nowhere, and everywhere, came a lullaby. "Why?" Soft off-key, like a music box winding down after years of disuse. The sound made his stomach turn. The mirrors began to ripple, like water catching wind. Reflections shifted. One by one, each copy of Yuki began to change. Eyes sunken, faces twisted, smiling when he did not, crying without tears. "Who are you? Really?" came the voice. It echoed from every direction, layered and warped, his own voice, but fractured, broken, uncertain. Yuki stopped before one mirror that refused to mimic it. Instead, it showed a younger version of himself, soaked in rain, clutching a blood-spattered stuffed rabbit, eyes swollen from crying. "That day, I tried to forget." Flashback. Night. An alley. Years ago. The rain came down in sheets. A small, frightened Yuki stood beside a crumbling brick wall. Somewhere close, a woman screamed. The rabbit slipped from his fingers, falling into a pool of red. Back in the mirror room, Yuki stared hard at the reflection. His hands curled into fists. Black, shadowy veins began to crawl along his skin, his own reflection flickering with something dark and hungry. "You're not me," he whispered. "You're what I left behind." The mirror shattered. And from it lunged a phantom. Phantom Yuki. Glowing white eyes, jagged teeth, hands like claws. Its laugh sounded like glass being ground underfoot. Yuki rolled aside just in time, shards slicing his coat as the creature struck. The floor fractured into chaotic, twisting reflections, a kaleidoscope of broken memories and silent screams. Fight sequence. They fought. Yuki moved on instinct, grabbing broken shards, deflecting swipes, dodging lunge. As the phantom grinned wider with every tremor of fear, growing larger with each moment Yuki faltered. Its voice rasped, barely human. "You're still afraid." Yuki snarled, blood dripping from a shallow cut. "I'm done running from myself." With a cry that echoed like thunder, Yuki drove a large shard into the phantom's chest. It froze, twitched, then cracked apart, dissolving into silvery dust that scattered like stars. Silence fell. The broken mirrors healed, rebuilding themselves in a slow wave, no longer fractured or twist. This time they showed only Yuki, breathing hard but calm. "Steady." "You are seen," said the voice, now soft, gentle. A door appeared ahead, opening without a sound. Yuki stepped toward it, pausing only once to look at his reflection. One last time. "One step closer," he said. Then he walked through, shadows curling around his ankles like whispered memories. Episode 14. Echoes from the static. The corridor was dim, bathed in a flickering hue of pale blue. Overhead, the lights sputtered and buzzed like dying star. The train itself hummed, a sound too organic for a machine, as if it were breathing. I thought I had heard every strange whisper this train could offer, Yuki thought, his footsteps cautious on the metal floor. But this time, it wasn't just whisperers. It was screaming. A blast of sharp static tore through the quiet, erupting from a speaker above. Yuki winced and looked up. The noise warped, glitched, twisting into something that almost resembled words. "Yuki, compartment 12, answers, waiting." The voice was scrambled, broken, but it knew his name. 12, Yuki muttered. "Always 12, why?" He turned his head slowly. There it was. The number, faded but visible, etched into the wall beside a sealed door. Compartment 12. It groaned open. Inside compartment 12. The room was unlike anything he had seen on the train before. No benches. No passengers. No gravity, it seemed. Dozens of CRT televisions floated midair, each flickering with scenes Yuki recognized instinctively, his memory. Some played distorted images of childhood, running barefoot through a hallway, laughter echoing faintly. Others showed shouting matches, waves crashing on a shore, the static of a lost signal. The floor beneath him reflected the glow of the screens perfectly, like an ocean made of glass. "This is my old house," Yuki said aloud, taking a step forward. "But how?" One of the screens zoomed in, pulling his focus. A boy sat cross-legged in front of a static-choked television. His back was turned, but Yuki recognized the shape of him, the slouch, the mess of height. The boy turned. It was him. "You promised you'd come back," said child Yuki, voice trembling through the screen. "You left us behind. Why?" The room tilted slightly. Yuki staggered. The screens hissed louder. His vision blurred. And then, another voice. One not from a screen. Not from the speaker above. It came from behind him. "Truth comes through static," it said, quiet and sharp like a scalpel. "Do you remember what you really ran from?" Yuki spun around. No one was there. Just the low hum of screen. The heavy breath of forgotten memories pressing down on him like a storm. Outside the compartment, Yuki stumbled back into the corridor, lungs burning, heart racing. The door behind him slammed shut. When he turned to look, the number 12 was gone. No trace of it remained. "They're not just rooms," he thought, wiping sweat from his brow. "They're traps. Tests. Mirrors." Suddenly, the train lurched beneath him. The lights above flared, white-hot, then pitch black, then sickly green. He grabbed the wall to steady himself. A voice came from the intercom. "Next stop. The memory well. Please remain coherent." Yuki shivered. "What is this place doing to my mind?" he whispered. Then he saw it. At the far end of the corridor, beyond the smoke and flickering lights, a silhouette. Tall. Humanoid, but not human. Its form glitched, like a broken television signal given shape. "We've waited long enough, Yuki," it said, voice layered and distorted. "It's your turn to remember." The lights snapped off. The train halted. Silence. Episode 15. The conductor's chamber. The silence felt surgical, as if the air itself had been sliced thin. Only a distant ticking echoed through the corridor, mechanical rhythmic, like a clock winding down. I thought I was getting closer to the end, Yuki thought, stepping forward beside Rina. But this train, it's not a line. It's a spiral. Every door, another scar. Another cut, deeper than the last. The next door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside was a space unlike any other. Vast and cathedral-like. The walls arched high above them, etched with golden circuitry and celestial runes. Tall windows ran the length of the car, revealing a dizzying panorama of swirling galaxies, planets, and dying stars. Time itself seemed to slow. And at the center, resting beneath a soft, sacred glow, was a massive brass control console, sprawling like a cathedral altar. Levers. Dials. Glowing glass bulbs ticking with unknown metrics. Yuki stepped in, reverent, his breath catching. "This is the conductor's chamber," Rina said quietly. "Why?" "No one makes it this far by accident." Yuki looked to her, confused. "You said the conductor disappeared." Rina nodded, stepping closer to the console. "He did," she said. "Or maybe he became the train." The train suddenly shuddered beneath their feet. The lights flickered. A figure emerged behind the console, half shadow, half machine. Cloaked in rusted metal, its face a smooth porcelain mask, white and blank. Cables spill from its back like wings made of sinew and steel. Yuki's breath froze. "Who drives the train?" the figure asked, "when the soul forgets the path? Who decides what memory to burn and which to relive?" Yuki stared, heart pounding. "Is that?" He whispered, "Me?" Rina turned to him, her expression unreadable. "You're not just a passenger, Yuki. You were once its heart." And then it hit him. Fragments. Like shattered glass reforming. Yuki saw himself, in a conductor's uniform, offering his hand to passengers, guiding them car by car, watching the corridors grow darker, more distort. A younger Rina, standing in the shadows, watching him work. His eyes back then were alive, focused, full of purpose. Then, something broke. And the train broke with it. Yuki stumbled, disoriented by the rush of memory. He reached out to the console for support as the room tilted unnaturally, the glow shifting into a flickering pulse. "I used to work on the train," he said, eyes wide. "I was part of it." The conductor, if that's what it was, nodded slowly. "You are its keeper," it said. "Its compass." S. But something fractured, and so the engine screamed. The rooms warped. The passengers were lost. A deep, throbbing rumble shook the chamber. Sparks burst from the console as the brass machinery groaned under unseen pressure. Rina grabbed Yuki's arm, steadying him. "You have to remember," she said. "Not just the pain, the purpose." The conductor reached out. His hand was cracked, leaking black ink like spilled memories. Yuki hesitated, then placed his hand against the phantoms. Light exploded across the car. Flashes of faces, blurred and desperate. Passengers screaming. Children laughing. Clocks melting. Car doors slamming shut forever. Fire licking down velvet seats. The train burning in eternity. And in the center of it all, Yuki. Watching it fall apart. "I abandoned them," he whispered, tears welling in his eyes. The conductor's porcelain mask cracked down the center. Beneath it, Yuki's own face, shadowed and hollow. "You can still guide them home," it said softly. The figure shimmered, then faded, leaving only the console, humming gently no. Blue. Quiet. Waiting. Yuki fell to his knees, Reina stepped beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Ready for the final stop?" she asked. He stood slowly, wiping the tears from his face. He looked down the long hallway of the train. A pulse, something ancient and final, beat at its heart. "Not yet," he said. "One more memory to find." The chamber doors at the Feingrund open, revealing a wall of blinding white light. Somewhere beyond it, the train whistled. Long, low, ghostly. And still, it rolled on. Episode 16. The door that wasn't there yesterday. Yuki stared at the wall. There hadn't been a door there yesterday. It pulsed, alive almost, etched with symbols that wriggled like worms just beneath the surface. Each marking blinked with unnatural light, as though it were breathing. As though the train itself were watching. Behind him, Rena stood perfectly still. Calm in that unnerving way she had, like a puppet who'd seen the strings. "It wasn't supposed to show up yet," she said, barely above a whisper. Yuki's voice cracked through the silence. Then what changed? A pause. A strange smile flickered on her lips. "You did." Before Yuki could respond, a soft thud came from behind the strange door. Like something large shifting. Or breathing. He glanced at Rena. She gave nothing away. He stepped forward, raised his hand. "Only one way to find out," he muttered. The door didn't open. It peeled. Like wet paper, curling outward in delicate layers, exposing a howling black wind. The moment the gap widened, the world snapped. Suction tore them in. Liminal space nowhere. Everywhere. They fell. No impact, just motion. And then stillness. Beneath them, the floor stretched in all directions, a perfect mirror, cool and colorless, reflecting twisted versions of themselves. Yuki's reflection was hollow-eyed, worn, whispering things his real mouth never said. Reina's reflection smiled, even though Reina herself remained stone-faced. "He doesn't trust you," Reina's reflection said. "You're the reason he's here," Yuki's own reflection snarled. He tried to look away, but the mirrored world began to fracture, twisting into a hallway of doors, each one flickering with a piece of his memory. A birthday candle. A broken watch. Blood on a coat. "What is this place?" Yuki asked, voice thin. Reina looked around, almost reverent. "The conductor's waiting room," she said. "A test." "A test for what?" She turned to him, her eyes finally softening. "To see if you remember who you really are." That's when he saw it. A door, old and wooden, with a single name carved into the grain. "Yuki." The world stopped breathing. His hand reached out on its own. "That's my brother's name." He opened the door. Flashback bedroom memory. He was small again. The walls of the room glowed with warm nightlight hues. Toys lay scattered. Two boys laughed, wrestling over a comic book. A sense of safety. Then, a horn. The scream. Yuki turned. Yukio was gone. Back in the void, Yuki collapsed to his knees. "You forgot him," Rena said quietly, her voice echoing from some unfathomable place. "You let him be taken." "No, I didn't," Yuki choked. "I couldn't have." The world pulsed, dimmed, broke apart. His reflection stared back now, older, face smeared in ash, eyes like burnt-out lanterns. "You wanted to forget," the reflection hissed. "But you made a promise." Rena reached down, grabbing his hand as the void collapsed around them. Back train car, night. They were standing again. The strange door, gone. Like it never existed. Yuki blinked. His hand trembled. Something small rested in his palm. A wooden toy train, carved by a child's hand, worn and splintered with age. He stared at it, hollow. He was real, he whispered. Rena nodded. You're starting to remember. That means it's almost time. The train jolted beneath their feet. Lights flickered violently. Somewhere ahead, a loudspeaker crackled, spewing out a garbled announcement, a voice chewed in reverse, stuck in a loop, like a memory too corrupted to play. What now? Yuki asked. Rena didn't blink. We're getting close to the engine. Episode 17 echoes at the final car. Int. Final train car night. Yuki stumbles into the final car. It's not what she expected. It's not haunted or nightmarish. It's silent. Dusty rays of dim light fall through a stained glass ceiling. Rows of antique chairs are arranged like a chapel. At the end of the car stands a massive mirror, oval, gilded, ancient, covered in pulsing, dark mist. Rena is already there, waiting. Rena. Softly. You made it. One last step. Yuki. Is that my stop? Rena. It's the choice. The mirror shows the memory you buried deepest. If you can face it. The mirror begins to swirl, pulling wind and whispers into its glass. Yuki approaches. Her reflection forms, but it's her younger self. Maybe 8 years old. Crying. Alone. In a hospital hallway. Yuki. Whispers. No. I forgot this. Rena. You didn't forget. You hid it. To survive. Flashback inside the mirror. Young Yuki holding a toy train, sitting beside a hospital bed. A woman's hand her mother lies still on the bed. Back to present. Yuki trembles but doesn't turn away. Yuki. Tears in her voice. I never said goodbye. Rena. You still can. Yuki steps into the mirror. She kneels beside her younger self. The hospital scene is frozen in time. She gently places a hand on her own shoulder. Yuki. To child Yuki. It wasn't your fault. And you weren't alone. Child Yuki nods. The mirror shatters, not violently, but like fading glass dust. Yuki and Rena are back in the train car. It is no longer dusty. Light floods in. The train starts to slow. Rena. You made it. This is the last stop. Yuki. Quietly. What happens now? Rena. That depends on you. The train doors open. In a quiet sunrise outside. Yuki steps out. Rena stays behind, a knowing smile on her face. Episode 18. Last stop. Scene opens in the conductor's cabin. Broken glass, flickering lights, a void beyond the windows. Yuki stands at the helm, trembling as the train barrels through a twisting corridor of stars and shadow. Rena lies unconscious beside him, her outline flickering like static. Yuki voice trembling. This has to be the end. It has to be. Suddenly, a presence enters the cabin. The air warp. It's the conductor no longer hiding behind illusions. His face is a mask of sorrow and smoke. The conductor. You brought her this far. Few ever do. Yuki. Why me? Why any of this? The conductor. Because guilt needs a destination. Flashbacks flood in, Yuki's past, the accident, the fractured moments of denial. Rena's voice echoing from the darkness. You left me. Yuki drops to his knees, overwhelmed. Yuki. I didn't mean to forget her. Rena's eyes flutter open. Her voice is clear now, not airy. Human. Rena. You didn't forget. You locked it away. The train screeches. Through the front window, the final station looms, a surreal mirror of their childhood town, bathed in twilight. The conductor softly. This is where the journey ends. You choose. Step off and face what you buried, or ride forever. Yuki and Rina step forward together. Doors hiss open. They step into the light. A wind rushes past. The world around them dissolves. For a moment, silence. Then, scene. Yuki wakes up in a hospital B. D. Rina's photo sits beside him. A nurse walks in. Nurse, you've been out a while, but you're lucky. The accident, most people don't come back from that. Final scene. Yuki visits a cemetery. He places flowers at a grave labeled Rina Takashi. He smiles through tears. Yuki whispers, I remember now. And I'm not running anymore. Last panel. A train whistle in the distance. Faint, but peaceful. Fade to black.